everybody, how you all doing? So it's Friday Fright night again. Oh yes, comes round quickly, doesn't it? And this week it's all about the dirty old town itself, Salford. Oh yes. So I hope you're going to enjoy it. Once again, if you can spare any money for the virtual tip jar, it's taken me a couple of weeks. Well, it's taken both of us a couple of weeks to make this. So it's how we're making our income at the moment. There doesn't seem to be a great deal of difference in the rules and regulations since last time I did this on a Friday. Still, theatre cannot take place that moves from one location to another. It does appear that things are getting a little bit easier this week, a little bit better. Bank holiday weekend, so I hope you're all feeling good. So we really do thank you for all those people that keep donating, and it's keeping us afloat, and thank you so much. And if you can donate, please do. The link will be on there. So let's go over to Flecky. Ooh.
It's Flecky, it's Friday, it's Flecky Bennett Friday, it's Flecky, it's Friday, it's Flecky's Fright night.
I met my love by the gasworks wall, dreamed a dream by the old canal. I kissed my girl by the factory wall. Hey, a dirty old town. Come on now, a dirty old town. Come on, Buggerlugs. Dirty old town. Come on. Dirty old town. Not dirty old man, you cheeky sods. How are you all? Hello, my friends. Why am I singing that song to you? Well, that song was written all about tonight's destination, Salford. Oh, yeah. Good pipage. Let me put that down. How are you all doing? Are you well? Let's have a look over onto this camera, Buggerlugs. Hello, hello, hello out there. Oh, this is my secret camera where I can have a bit of secret conversation with you out there. Oh, I can see you. I can see you now. Back over here, please, Buggerlogs. So, my friends, how are you all? Are you well? I know it's a bank holiday weekend. I don't know if that means anything anymore with the current situation. But, you know, I know a lot of you out there are, you know, on the front line, so you're probably, hopefully, having a nice long weekend. You deserve it. You deserve it. I don't. I'll be sat on my arse. I don't want to sit on my arse. But, well, I've not been sat on me. I've been led on my bed, really, doing these for 2 weeks at a time. So I hope you're all right. And it's good to see you all again. No virtual bus tonight. We'll be coming back with that in the future. We're back in the porter's chair. Let's have a look at it in all its beauty. No good putting a white light on a white light, is it, Buggerlugs? So there you go. We're back in the beautiful porter's chair. So, yes, let's talk about Salford. How many of you lot are from Salford out there? I bet there's a few of you, isn't there? Yes, well, I love it when I could do my original Manchester Ghost Walk and being able to tell people that just as you cross over halfway across one of them bridges across the River Irwell, 1 foot can be in Manchester, 1 foot can be in Salford. And that is the best way to enter Salford, definitely, is from one of its magnificent bridges that cross the River Irwell. And some of you came on my one performance. I know there were 2 performances, weren't there, of the Manchester ship. I'll take it. Cruise. Yeah, Flecky Bennett's Manchester River Cruise that happened twice last year. Obviously, it's been postponed this year, but it will be going ahead. And yeah, and that's where I lost my musical codpiece, the original one, down the crack of the boat, if you know what I mean. So there's plenty of these bridges over the River Irwell. They've all got really interesting stories, but on that performance, I cover all them. But the one you can take from Manchester to Salford, and my favourite one, is one called Blackfriars Bridge. And it's a really old bridge. Well, the original one was really old. Let's have a look at it now, Buggerlugs. That is the original, an illustration of the original Blackfriars Bridge. And that was built in 1761. It was just a wooden footbridge. Now, I couldn't believe who built it. Only a bunch of actors. Oh, yes. Actors and comedians. Now, there was a theatre which was owned by a group of actors and comedians in Salford, and they had a right bastard of a job to get the Mancunians to get on the boats and stuff to cross the River Irwell to go to their theatre. That they built the Blackfriars original bridge. built by actors and comedians, so it made it easy for them Mancunians to just trot along that bridge to the theatre, and it was packed out every night. So that is the history behind that. Obviously that was being knocked down since, and there's a stone one there now. And but what a charming story. So Salford's really popular for theatre, even more so now than ever before, really, since the Lowry has been built. I mean, it's shut at the moment, unfortunately, but me and Buggerlugs are regulars at the Lowry. We see lots of stuff there. We love it, don't we?
Yeah,
absolutely love it. It's a brilliant theatre. But before the Lowry Theatre, there was a really, really popular theatre in Salford, and it was called the Victoria Theatre. Let's have a look at it. This is the Victoria Theatre, and apparently it was a absolutely beautiful theatre. Splendiferous it was, and now the building is derelict, unfortunately. But it was a stunning theatre, 2,000 seats, so very much like the Opera House in Manchester, that kind of size. Did it turn into a bingo hall later in its life? Now it's derelict, but there is a campaign to save the Victoria Theatre Salford, so maybe some of you might want to have a look at the website later. It's fantastic because it's still got all its original gold inside and seating, but it's in a pretty bad condition. So when it was opened in the year 1900 exactly, and it was opened by the country's leading actor at the time, a man called Henry Irving. Let's have a look at him. This is Henry Irving. Do you like what I've done with his bit of a fringe there, Buggerlugs?
I do.
It's good, isn't it? Look at that.
It's wispy.
I tell you what I can do with these graphics these days. I mean, if you look back at my first Fright night from Gorton, the difference, well, I don't think there is still love doing it, but I've changed a lot since then. Yeah. So that is Henry Irving, and the most popular actor in this country at the time. And he was opening the Victoria Theatre in Salford. On the opening, he laid the foundation stone and he opened it, and he took along his best friend. Now his best friend was none other than, now let me change the lighting for this, hang on a minute. Oh, that's better. I'll have a little white light. You won't believe this. Henry Irving's best friend, who also opened the Victoria Theatre in Salford, was none other than, show him, Bram Stoker. Yeah, I couldn't believe it neither. Bram Stoker opened the Victoria Theatre in Salford along with Henry Irving. And we know what Bram Stoker's famous for, don't we? He was famous for the novel Dracula. I've got a fantastic story about him if you come on the Ancoats one when it's back up and running. But yeah, so he wrote Dracula. Now, it was wrote in parts in Whitby and in London. It's been written in various locations when he was staying in different homes. But he based Dracula on Henry Irving. Let's have a look at Henry Irving again. And he was fascinated by him. It's believed that maybe he had a man crush. Is that the word I'm looking for?
Yeah.
A man crush. So Bram Stoker had a man crush on Henry Irving, and he found him totally hypnotic. And that's what people used to say about Henry Irving's performances. You were hypnotised by his talent. A bit like me. Yes, you're quite right, my friends. Take him over here. A bit like me. I'm hypnotic, aren't I? Look into my eyes. Not around my eyes, but in my eyes. Yes, so he was hypnotic to his audiences. And that's where Bram Stoker got the idea of Dracula being hypnotic and putting his hypnotising his women before he bit them. So it was a bit besotted with Henry Irving, was Bram Stoker. I don't know if he was gay, maybe he was, I'm not sure. Let's go back over here. So yes, so that's the two that opened the theatre, Bram Stoker and the country's leading actor. Ironically enough, and this is just before the first play that they put on there was called Sign of the Cross. Nothing to do with vampires, it was just called Sign of the Cross, and I thought that's a bit strange as well, isn't it? Well, to do it because vampires are afraid of the cross. Of course they are. Now, Henry Irving, he was the country's leading actor, and he had a brilliant death, I suppose, for him. Let me just get me in the right place. Now, he was touring around the country. He was only in his 60s, and he was still touring all over the country, and he was in Bradford playing the lead part in a Beckett play. And he got to the last lines of the play, and the last lines were, let me quote it to you, "Into thy hands, O Lord, into thy hands. Took a round of applause, standing ovation, took his bow, started feeling really ill, clutched hold of his arm, had a stroke just as he left the stage. Taken to a nearby hotel, put in a chair in the lobby of the hotel where he died. The last words he muttered on this earth were those lines, the final lines of the play. Into thy hands, O Lord, into thy hands. Isn't that weird? And that chair that he died in, everybody wanted it. Everybody. But the Garrick Theatre Club, a private members club in London, managed to buy it. And here's a picture of the chair. I'm sure it's a bit, I couldn't get a close-up one of it, unfortunately. There doesn't seem to be any anywhere on the internet. But it's got a little gold plaque on it. And it just basically says on that gold plaque that in 1905, Henry Irving took his last breath on this chair. So that's quite an interesting story, isn't it? Yes, my friends. Also, I know a lot of you are fans of horror, and we're all very happy with the new release of The Woman in Black on Blu-ray, the original version, the TV version. But how many of you have seen the stage play? Probably quite a lot of you, because you love your horror. But I can't recommend it highly enough. Me and Buggerlugs have seen it, well, I don't know. I used to work at a theatre and I watched it about 100 times when I worked at a theatre. So I've seen it probably 200 times over the years. And I got familiar with the name Irving from that play, because all the way through The Woman in Black he keeps saying because it's about an actor and a man who go on stage together, and this actor's saying to the other man who's trying to get to be a good actor, I shall make an Irving out of you yet. And what does he say, the other guy?
I have no desire to be an Irving.
And it's a running theme throughout the play. So he's basically saying, I'm going to make a great actor of you. And he's saying, I don't want to be a great actor. I just need to tell my story. So that's how I knew of Henry Irving. Let's have a drink, everybody. It's a Friday night, and it cheers, everybody. Oh, I tell you, we're having a beef curry tonight. It's brilliant. It's in the background. It's in the slow cooker. Made from scraps of beef, because we can't afford any proper joints yet, Not till we get back on the streets. Give generously. So, my friends, have you got a nice drink, everybody? Is anybody talking to you on there?
Oh, loads.
Is there loads talking? Anybody saying it?
Chatting between themselves.
Yeah, man, chatting amongst yourselves. Listen to me, you buggers. Look at me, I'm having a glass of water with red wine tonight.
Deb says that you should have a drum roll effect before some of your revelations.
Well, I've got my pipe for that. So, yes. So that was the theatre. And as I say, it's still standing, but it's derelict, but they are trying to save it. So that'd be brilliant if they could get it back, wouldn't it? And now behind the theatre is a little street. And it's called Picton Street. Picton Street. And in 1873, all of that area of Salford was being terrorised by the scuttlers. Now, for those that have been on the Ancoats performance, I take you to the street where there was a massive scuttler fight, the biggest of the lot. But the scuttlers were all over Manchester. Gorton was rife with them, just outside here. Outside our window used to have scuttlers everywhere. Nothing's changed. And Salford had a gang, and they were called the King Street Lads. And they terrorised the area of Salford, especially the streets around where that theatre is, and Picton Street. Now, there was a little boy, and he was called Thomas Inglis. Let's have a look at him. This is little Thomas. Now, he was a good boy. He was only 10 years of age. He was coming back from Sunday school, trying to get back to his house on Picton Street. And he was walking along, and only 10, and these scuttlers approached him. Let me have a look at the scuttlers. And there's an actual picture of the scuttlers. And that's Picton Street behind them. And they started to bully this little lad, Thomas. And they said, we want you to join the scuttler gang. You're from this area, join our gang. He said, I don't want to. Anyway, they started beating him up. And they were kicking him on the floor. And there were quite a big gang of them. And he managed to crawl free, run round the back of the theatre where his house was on Picton Street, and managed just about to get inside where his brother let him in and his mother was inside. They were terrified because all these scuttlers were throwing rocks and bricks at the windows. And his brother said, listen, Thomas, if they know you're afraid, they're going to keep picking on you. He said, take this outside. So he gave him, let's have a look at it. It's called an iron-handled fire rake. So let's just call it a fire rake from now on. But it's a big, heavy iron object, and it must have been to rake out the fireplace when you're putting in a fresh
to drop
coal.
Everything down the grate.
Oh, Bugger Lugs knows what it was for. Have you got one at your house?
No.
Oh, she seems to know a lot about it. Mind you, they are a bit behind time in Buxton. I didn't say that, okay. So he got hold of this fire rake and he opened the door and his brother sort of pushed him back out and said, go on, get them, get these scuttlers, get them, don't let them beat you up, stand up for yourself. Panicking, the little boy Thomas, he threw it at them. And the scuttlers had been joined by lots of kids from the neighbourhood just watching what was going on. And the rake bounced off the footpath, flew up and went inside this young boy's head, unfortunately. I've done an illustration, it's a bit gory. And this lad was only 10, the same age as Thomas. And it bounced up, impaled itself in the front of his head, and the little boy died. And Thomas, even being 10 years of age, was arrested for murder. And he was facing the hangman's noose. And it was only when they started doing the autopsy that they realised that the position that the fire rake had gone into his head, it must have been true what he'd been saying, because they worked out the position, it must have bounced off something. And then he got a really good references from everybody that knew him, saying he was a good lad, and he was let off. So he just about survived the hangman's noose. But that's the scuttlers, the King Street lot, and they were terrorising that area. Now then, let me just show you something in a second. Yes. So what happened to the scuttlers, you may be asking yourselves? What happened to them? Well, these little youth clubs sort of thing were popped up all over Manchester to get rid of the scuttlers. And the most famous of the lot is this one. And you're probably all familiar with it. This is Salford Lads Club. And that popped up in Salford to take away, you know, the scuttlers from the King Street lads, to give them something else to do rather than fighting with other scuttlers and other gangs. And they made them stop fighting on the streets, but let's fight in the boxing ring. So here's a picture from inside there from many years ago. They could be two of the scuttlers, probably were, because they were always young lads. So they were boxing in the boxing ring, and then they decided, you know, there was still like bit of a you know, hassle with the other gangs. So the best way to sort out hassle with other gangs is to challenge them, but in a safe way. So they started forming football teams. So they all had these football teams, and here in Gorton, just outside our window here, there was a place called St Mark's, and that was sort of a youth club, and it started its own football club, St Mark's Football Club, and they became West Gorton Football Club, and they're the only football team which still survives from the Scuttler days. And do you know who they are now? Of course you do. Over to this one. Man City Football Club are the only surviving ones from the Scuttles. So that's how they came around. Man City are the original football club of the Scuttlers. Ooh. Good little story that, isn't it? I'm a red, by the way, but don't let that put you off. Give me a tip. Is that right? So, cheers everybody. So we're glad that all the Scuttlers went and they turned it around and they became nice boys, footballers. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. There was a picture, wasn't there? Yes, great picture. I mean, let's have a look at that picture again. What a great, that was the original Man City Football Club shirt, and it's got a cross on the front because it was all connected to St Mark's. So yes, but you're all probably well familiar with the Salford Lads Club for one reason: a band. Oh yeah, you know what I mean, don't you? Yes, the Smiths. It's a famous cover, isn't it? Famous cover of one of their songs. The Smiths had it taken outside the Salford Lads Club, and people from all over the world that are massive Smiths fans still congregate out there. I've been past a few times on the bus, and there's always people outside having the photograph taken, trying to replicate that pose by Morrissey and the lads. So that's how most people know it. Yes, Buggerlugs?
No, I was just going to...
Oh, I thought you were going to chirp in then.
I was.
Do chirp in then, go on.
No.
Oh, she shut up now. I'll do the funnies. So that's her.
You're the one for me, Flecky.
Oh, we like a bit of Smiths. Not sure about Morrissey with his political views these days, but we like a bit of the Smiths, don't we? So yeah, that were the Scuttlers, and that's the Salford Lads Club. And where did the Scuttlers come from in the first place? Well, they came from the mills. Let's have a look. I mean, children, very young children, were hired for the mills from the age of like 4 upwards, you know, these really little children, and they were called scavengers because they were small enough to get under the machinery. An absolutely awful job, but they were small enough to pick up all the bits of cotton that had got jammed and stuff like that. So that's where they came from, the scuttlers. They were never girls, so that was a picture of the girls, but Salford had some of the truly awful mills, and no more awful than this one. Now, you may have heard of the term the dark satanic mills. There wasn't a mill more satanic than this one. It was even known as the Cripple Factory. Give us some dry ice, Buggerlugs. She's in charge of the dry ice again. Anything could happen. The Cripple Factory. Now, I know there's a lot of the old mills in Ancourt, so when I do the performance again, you'll see them. But that was meant to be the worst of the worst. The Cripple Factory.
No.
Oh, it don't matter. And let's have a look at some of the...
Yeah.
Oh, here we go, here we go.
Oh, in the wrong way.
Oh, here we go. Get some dry ice. Come on, get it up there. Because it's a ghost story coming up. Come on. That's it. Oh, nice. I like it. Oh, it's foggy. So, yes. So, these are the kind of boys which would have been in there. Let's have a look at the boys that were working there. And they grew up to be the scuttlers. They didn't have much choice, really. They were abandoned. There was one mill owner who owned the Cripple Factory. It was called William Douglas. And he went round all the, what they call poor schools? No. Orphanages and workhouses to find any children that would be suitable, and obviously there'd be a lot of children suitable, and he'd buy them for a very small amount of money, put them in his factory, and he imprisoned them. He actually chained them up, he whipped them if they were badly behaved, and he sent them under the machines, and these little scavengers, as they were known, would catch their arms and their legs in the workings, and that's why it was called the Cripple Factory. You know, one little mistake and that's you done for life, isn't it? Lose your leg, lose your arm. So it was a terrible place, and William Douglas was a terrible mill owner. And not only did he used to buy them, but he used to steal them. And what he used to do at night time, he used to go out on his black stallion, oh yes, black stallion at night time, riding around the streets of Salford. Now, there's an area called Whip Lane, and that was the main area where he used to ride around looking for little children that might be out on the streets. And he'd get them, and he'd put them on the back of his horse, and he'd whip his horse, and he'd ride off with them and put them in his Cripple Factory, never to be seen again. You know, he was a terrible, terrible man. It was so terrible that he got the title of Black Douglas. I'll say it again, Black Douglas. They forgot about the William bit. Black Douglas, who owned the Cripple Factory. What a sinister character. And after he died, they say all that area around where the mill used to be, and his house used to be next door to the mill, you could still hear his horse at night, the hooves. Is that like a hoof? And then you'd hear his and then it's how do you say it? Maniacal laugh. Let's have a look at it now. Oh, we're not supposed to be able to. No, yeah, that's right. Leave it on. Enjoy it, everybody. Enjoy his laugh. Just so that if you hear it out there on the streets of Salford, you know who it is laughing. It's not Flecky. It's Black Douglas. Ooh, looking for more children. Bit like the child catcher, isn't he? Yeah, children! Yeah. A real child catcher. No treacle. Oh, I just thought about that. I wish I wrote into the script earlier, that bit, but I like it. So, yes. And there is, what's he called again? Daft Monkey? No. What's that guy that makes the documentaries? I think so. There's a guy that makes documentaries. I'm just trying to... Oh, can you...
Disco.
It's a disco. Hang on, bear with me, everybody.
Disco's
I don't know what I've done.
Disco's there.
I'll just change the lighting for a second. There's a guy that makes Daft Monkey, he's called, and he does YouTube videos. And he did one just by coincidence about Black Douglas, and it's well worth watching. He's got a massive following, and he's a real down-to-earth, like, you know, mank lad, really. And so I didn't want to nick anything from his YouTube video. But there was a really interesting bit, and it's well worth watching, everybody. But there's a little interesting bit where he goes out sometimes with his dad, and his dad's really keen on ghost hunting by the looks of it. And he had one of the EVP recorders, and you'll see it in the episode if you watch it. And he stood on the site of where the triple factory used to be. So that'll be demolished, and they're building new houses there. And he asked out on this recorder to Black Douglas, "Why were you so cruel to the children?" And this voice, when he plays it back, says in reply, "Because I bought them. I owned them." So he's there. His presence is there. Black Douglas and the Cripple Factory. Daft Monkey. I never watched it. It's well worth watching. So, my friends, that is Black Douglas. However, there was another mill, and it's still there actually, this mill, and some of you might have been there. Let's have a drink, everybody, because it's got a bit of a bar inside. There's not many pubs mentioned tonight, so I have to take it when I can. But they do have drinks inside there in this mill. Back on the red wine this week. It's called Islington Mill. You may have seen it. Let's have a look at it. And Islington Mill, it's one of the mills that survived. And they've turned it into sort of, well, it's a bit of everything. It's a theatre space, it's a music venue, it's got a bar inside, it's got artists in residence, it's got a film studio upstairs, and it's a really popular place. Some of you may have been for nights out there. However, in the year of 1823, it was built in 1822, and it was supposed to be a revelation because it was the first fireproof mill. Now apparently all the mills before it pretty much had wooden floors, brick walls, wooden floors, and they kept setting fire because the machinery would get hot and it would set fire sparks onto the wooden floors. So they built Islington Mill as a fireproof mill by making all the floors made out of bricks. So it had brick floors and no wooden beams, metal beams. And just a year after it was opened, all the workers were in there, and it was 5 stories high, and they were all working on the different floors, and one of the metal beams in 1823 fell from the ceiling. It was 9 o'clock in the morning, landed, hit the middle of the floor on the 5th floor, brought all the bricks crashing through, so the floor just gave way in the centre. All the people and the machines that were in the centre of the room fell through onto the next level, bringing that floor down and bringing them people down all the way, all the 5 floors, until they were in a pile of rubbish of like debris and bricks right at the bottom. There was arms and limbs sticking out. People were jumping out of the windows that had managed not to go through the floors, but they were trying to hang on to what was left of the window frames on the other floors, and it was terrible. The noise of that sounded like thunder. The people that worked there had cottages nearby, so they all heard this from the factory. So all the family and friends and relatives came running to the site, and when they got to the site, it was a terrible sight at the site. They started rummaging through the bricks trying to find their loved ones. One reporter said he's never seen such grief on people's faces as finding their loved ones mangled in the mess. 19 bodies were dragged out of the bricks that were piled up and the machinery that had landed on them. And it was mainly women. I think it was 16 women and 3 children. 3 of the scavengers were in the dead. And then they took them outside and they led all the dead in the courtyard outside. They covered them up apart from their faces so that relatives could try to identify their loved ones that had died that day. And ever since then, people have recorded that it's a haunted mill. Lots of people have heard children in there, footsteps, they've heard them bricks tumbling again. You know, whether you think it's stone tape theory where the walls record things. But I was lucky enough, or maybe unlucky enough, to go there a couple of Halloweens ago. I was invited by Manchester Finest to do an Halloween special with them. And I've got a little bit of an excerpt of it now because they sent me, they won't go up there, they sent me up to the actual attic where it all began, where the original beam fell down, to ask out if there were any spirits. So here's a little bit of that recorded. It's well worth watching. Hey, this is the haunted mill, innit?
I know, mate. Oh, do you know it's meant to be...
Oh, I'll tell you. Takes me right back. The year of our Lord, 1824, and up there, right up there, in the bit that collapsed. 19 poor unfortunates 16 women and 3 children passed away when a beam dropped on the noggins. And it's incredibly haunted. And if you want me to show you, maybe we can do a bit of investigating. What do you think? It's seriously spooky up here, isn't it? Yeah, again, there's knocking happening here, around this area here. There's nobody else up here apart from me and the camera crew. I'm hearing a ooh. Did you hear that? I'll tell you something, I really was afraid. You can quite hear something going ooh back to me. And yeah, it was a funny old night that was, with Nanny Banton and friends. If you look on, I think it might be on one of my, I think it's on one of my YouTube channels, the full episode. It's on about 20 minutes. It's a very funny ending, it's well worth watching for that. Maybe I'll put it on later on my Facebook page for let you have a look. They maybe do a Ouija board. Excuse me, wine's very gassy these days. They wanted to do a Ouija board to contact the spirits, but when it come round to it, I took my Ouija board. I explained to them, you know, there's people that believe they're real, people that believe they're not. It's up to you to decide. And by the time I said it, none of them would do it. They're absolutely whacking themselves. And they said, oh no, Flecky, this is too much. So I did it on my own later, and it came out with quite a revelation. So I might put it on later. But yeah, so you may have been to Islington Mill. And if you haven't, it's well worth visiting. I think it's sort of back to normal at the moment, I'm not sure. But it's in an area of Salford which is near a thing called Chapel Street. And on Chapel Street, and not very far away from Islington Mill, just about 5-minute walk, is the old Royal Hospital. And yeah, Salford Royal Hospital. Obviously they moved to a new one and it's now flats. But Salford Royal Hospital was built many, many years ago. And it was built mainly for the injuries from the mills at first. They decided that they needed somewhere for them to go. They did the same in Ancoats. Obviously, because of the cripple factory and places like that, people needed all the time to be tended to. So it started off as a small little place. Then it built up into what it was, Salford Royal Hospital. And then it became really important when it was the Blitz, looking after people, treating people. But then something really bad happened. In the Second World War, it took a direct hit from a Luftwaffe. It was actually after they decided that they all thought that the bombing raids had ended, and it just came out of nowhere, and they hit the nurses section where the nurses used to sleep, and 14 of these poor women were killed, and they're only young, between 20-25 years of age. That's not actually a picture of them, there is no pictures of them, but that is a nurse of the same era when it happened in 1940 I think it was. So yeah, and what they did as well with them 14 nurses, as a tribute to them, while the hospital was still open, they had 14 beds with a plaque on each bed, so some of the patients that went in there were led in a bed that was dedicated to one of them nurses. So it's terrible, really terrible thing to happen. People, it's now a really expensive, well, it's been an expensive flat for quite a while. It's been flats probably for a good 20 years, I think. And they're expensive, like everywhere else now is in Manchester. And they've got the added bonus that it's haunted by these ghosts of 14 nurses. Now, I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing to be haunted by a nurse. Can't decide. But, you know, you get the added bonus of ghost nurses. So, that's Chapel Street that it's on. Cheers, everybody. Let's have a raise your glass moment. It's not official. It's not official. Oh, I'll put it on then if it's official. Go on. Put the what you call it, the payment thing on just while I'm having a drink, so they can see it in case they want to donate. Yes, so that's how you donate if you'd like to. Back to me now, Buggerlugs. Oh, you like this one? So, Chapel, I've got a great story coming up. Hang on, let's have some dry ice, Buggerlugs. Let's have a change of lighting. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's nice. Like ice cold, that is. What shall we have now for lighting? We'll have a red. Oh, I tell you, it's all happening. Come on, let's have a bit of dry ice. Get the Atmos going, the Atmos. Here we go. Here we go, everybody. So, Chapel Street. Chapel Street. What the old Salford Royal Hospital was on. Still on, but it's flats. is famous because it's the first street in this country to have gas lighting. So that's actually a picture from Chapel Street from many years ago. I never knew that. I thought, is that true? But it is true. The first street to have gas lamps in the UK. It also had the first public free park in the world. And here's a picture of it, well, a painting of it. And it's called Peel Park, named after not John Peel, but Robert Peel, the policeman. Hey, up!
Whoa!
Hey! You can hear that noise then. That painting is by the most famous person from Salford, Lowry. I'm not going to talk about Lowry tonight because he's featured in my thing. Leave it on a minute, Bugalooks.
Sorry.
It's just that I want to just mention something which you pointed out to me. I'm not going to mention Lowry tonight because he's featured heavily on the River Cruise experience. But on that painting there, is it top right or top left where you can...
Top right.
Top right, you'll see there's an orange terracotta building. And yes, that terracotta building is this building, which is now the museum and art gallery, and they've got a Lowry collection in there as well as the Lowry Centre. But that was the country's first free library as well. So first lighting, first park in the world, first library. Unbelievable, isn't it? Wonderful. Now I must admit, this is my favourite story. I couldn't believe this. Bugalug sent this research along, so have a look on us. Cheers, everybody. Now, there used to be a race course, horse racing and stuff in Salford. And apparently it was occupied by undesirables, cutthroats and rogues. But there's all sorts of different events there, but the most popular event... Now, have you all seen that TV programme? Hang on, put me over here, it's filthy. Hello, my friends. Have you all seen that TV programme? What's it called?
Naked Attraction.
Naked Attraction. I'm talking to you. Yeah, you. Naked Attraction. I keep getting invites on it. People keep writing to me from Channel 4. Naked Attraction. You're familiar with it, aren't you? Absolutely horrendous, isn't it? Who do that? And if you have done that, I'm right behind you. They had their own version many years ago of Naked Attraction. And it was called, it was male nude horse, not horse racing, not horses, male nude racing. Yes, they had male nude racing events, right? Single men, Billy Bollock naked, single women behind the barriers watching, and then the men would run off with everything flapping about in the wind. And the women shouting, "Way! Woo!" And if you took a shine to one of these men, you could request to meet them afterwards. And there was a woman watching, very wealthy woman, and she was called Barbara Babs to her friends. Babs Minshall. She was a 65-year-old, well, probably a millionaire by today's standards. She owned property everywhere, and she took a shine to a 6'4" Scotsman. She liked what was under his kilt. She didn't need to guess what was under his kilt. She liked it. 6'4" he was, and he was known as, I don't know if they actually gave the men like horse racing names. I think they did, because I think his name in the race was Spanking Roger. That happened later after they got, but Spanking Roger his name was. And so the 65-year-old Barbara Minshall, bit of money, bit of a cougar she was, She requested to meet him. When he found out she was one of the richest people around, he agreed to marry her. Apparently he was so drunk at the wedding, he had to be held up at the wedding ceremony. But he outlived her, because he was quite young and she was quite old, and he inherited all her property. So that was good. Now, unfortunately, I was looking all over the place for some kind of photographs or illustrations of the male nude racing, but there isn't any. But I came across this just when I was Googling things, and it made me laugh. Let's have a look at it. Look at this. Leave that on. It's that was an actual race a few years ago. I don't know if you ever watch horse racing on the television, but that's what happened. And obviously you can't be bloody reaching around and pulling your pants back up because you're holding onto the reins for dear life. And his pants fell down. Look at that. Somewhere to park your bike, isn't it? And you can see his currant bun, can't you? See his currant bun? Ah, there you go. Hey, cheers everybody, cheers. Cheers now, cheers. Ooh. Listen to this for genius. Seamless into the next section. Talking about currant buns, Salford is very famous for sort of a currant bun, an Eccles cake. There's an area called Eccles of Salford, and that's the Eccles cake that you're looking at right now. It's puff pastry and it's filled with dead flies. It was called dead fly pie, but it's not actually flies, it's currants in there. So it's flaky pastry, currants, and what's that peel stuff again?
Candied peel.
Candied peel. And it was invented in the late 1700s, and it put Eccles on the map. Eccles in Salford on the map all over the world. It was exported everywhere. People couldn't get enough of dead fly pie. I bet some of you have had it. I've had it as a kid. I've had it probably a few years ago. I used to like putting extra butter on top of it, make it a bit more special. Good job the religious people of the day didn't find out about me putting butter on it, because they banned it. They banned it in the 1800s because it was too succulent, too indulgent. It was ungodly. So people started eating it secretly in their homes. It was like undercounter. Have you got a bit of damn fly pie? I have. Dodgy deal on it. Yum, yum, yum. So they don't let anybody find out. So it was made for hundreds and hundreds of years in Eccles. And then the Eccles factory shut down there. And it's not being made anywhere near Eccles anymore. Not even Greg's in Eccles sells Eccles cakes, and yet it made it world famous. It's dead fly pie. However, just down the road here in Gorton, on Bellevue, just past Bellevue, down Hyde Road towards the Apollo Theatre, it's there now, the Eccles Cakes factory. It's called Lancashire Eccles Cakes, and they still export them all over the world. I think you can get them in the Spar shop if I'm not wrong, but so you can still get dead fly pie. Oh yes, dead flies. Now let's have a quick drink. Cheers everybody. There's no time to have a piss tonight, Julie, if you're watching. There's a woman watching last week, Julie, week before, and she said when I had a bit of video, she said she went to the toilet, so you know, but it's a bit fast and furious this one tonight, isn't it? So talking about religious people and things being banned. You probably all remember, or you've heard, or you've read about, there was the Reformation Act where you weren't allowed to practice your Catholic faith, and Catholic priests were hunted down. That's why there's all these priest halls all over the place, in these places like Ordsall Hall and Bramall Hall, and they had to hide from priest hunters who would hunt them down, and just like witches being burnt, they would burn priests. And there was a priest called Father Ambrose, and he was convicted of being a Catholic priest. He was taken to Lancaster Castle, where he was given a death sentence, and he got the worst kind of execution possible, the old hung, drawn and quartered. We've talked about that on a few Fright nights, where they would they would hang you up, they would slit you open, they'd sometimes fry your internal organs and feed them to you, they'd cut off your old man, put it in your gob like a cigar. Horrible way to go. Tie horses to your ropes on horses to your legs at either side into your arms and pulled apart by horses, hung, drawn and quartered, and then they'd chop your head off. So they did that to this poor Father Ambrose, and then to make it even a final statement, they boiled him in oil. Frying tonight! And he was thrown in the oil, well, what remained of him. But somebody from Salford, from Wardley, the Wardley area of Salford, decided to pinch his head and take it back to where they lived, at this wonderful building called Wardley Hall. Isn't that a magnificent place? I've never heard of it until I started doing this research, but I'm definitely going to visit it when everything's back to normal. So that's Wardley Hall, part of Salford. And they decided, this would make a nice souvenir. So they put it on the mantelpiece, his noggin. I'm not sure if it was just a skull by then. I think it was a skull because they boiled it, you know what I mean, in oil. So I think everything come off, it was just the bones. So they had this skull. They think, nice, that'd be nice to put a candle inside. Be nice for Halloween to get a candle behind it, wouldn't it, buggerogs? Anyway, so they put it on the side, and then they thought, it's a bit gory, isn't it, really? So let's, I think we should get it out of the house. So they went into the grounds of Wardley Hall, dug a ditch, threw it in the ditch, covered it over. By the time they got back into the house, it was only on the side again, the skull looking at them. So there it was, looking at them. They thought, oh, what's going on here? We've just buried that. Took it out again, different location. Buried it in the ground. By the time they got back, they found it in another room looking at them like this. Oh yes, should have had that skull again, shouldn't I, that I had for other performance. Third time, bloody skull. Took it out, put it in a ditch, got back in, and it was there. Looking at them like this. Dry ice, bugger lugs. Oh yes, we're pulling out the big guns for this. So they thought, this is ridiculous. Let's try something different. There used to be a moat that run round the outside of the house, a very deep moat. So they decided to get the skull. They threw it into the moat. It sank into the moat, and as soon as it disappeared into the water, this thunderstorm started above Wardley Hall. Thunderbolts. Lightning. Oh yeah. Hey, she's doing the sound effects, listen. It was very, very frightening, I can tell you. Thank you. Don't milk it. This went on for days and days. They thought, oh God, I wonder if it's something to do with that skull. Again, the bloody Father Ambrose. So they had to drain the moat while it was still thundering. I caught her off guard then, that you weren't ready for that one. While it was still thundering. Ooh. Flashing lightning. Hang on, I'll create that, bugger lugs. Hey, that's quite good, that, isn't it? Oh, they were looking for this skull. They were draining the moat, going, oh God, I hope we find it. Bloody chaos, isn't it? It's chaos. Anyway, they found this skull in the sediment at the bottom of the moat. They got it out, and as soon as they lifted it out of the moat, the skies cleared. They thought, all right, we get the message, Father Ambrose. You want to stay in Wardley Hall. So what they decided to do was put it in a, what's it called?
Display case.
A display case, yeah. It's a wooden case with glass panels. And they sealed it quite well. They thought, well, we'll put it in this. We're going to display. Where the hell can we put it? Nobody was keen on it going anywhere, really. So what they did was they carved out a bit of the wall at the top of the stairs that fits the box, the display case, perfectly. So let's have a look at it. And it's still there to this very day. It's at the top of the stairs. And it looks quite good, doesn't it? Mm. To be perfectly honest. I mean, I quite like one. When you cut your clogs, I might do that to you.
You'll be going for
Put
me.
it in the old toilet. Remind you of you when I go in there. Spends most of her life at toilet, this one. No, I won't talk about that.
Do not.
How dare you? So yes, it's at the top of the stairs inside that glass case. But the story doesn't end there. Dry ice, dry ice. The story doesn't end there, my friends. Oh no. It started to make sounds. Oh yes, over the years it started to make screaming sounds. And it's now got the name of the Screaming Skull of Skull House. Let it scream once again! Is it? Oh, did that put it right up you? Ooh, we're not messing around, we're not playing games. So yes, the Screaming Skull of Skull House. Talking about remains and skeletons and things, there's a church called St Philip's Church. I think that's also on Chapel Street. Yes. St Philip's Church. It's a beautiful church. Let's have a look at it. It's got a lovely. It's round. Most of it's completely round. It's a massive church, and it's got a massive crypt underneath. Even though it's got a massive crypt, there's only 8 people buried down there, apparently. Now, you know, I've mentioned grave diggers before on the Edinburgh one last time, and if you know my performances, it's quite a popular theme, isn't it? Because Manchester was really popular for grave robbers because of the medical schools, and these people, they were quite well-to-do people that are buried in this crypt. It's known as a soldiers' church because they're like ex-sergeants and colonels and stuff that are buried down there, and they were taking no chance that their bodies were going to be stolen by resurrectionists. So down there originally, you know, you got the crypt, it would be arches, so they would bury them in a section of the arches, then they would brick up the arch, and in some cases put a metal gate over the front as well. Some of the bodies down there weren't quite as famous, so their relatives said, can we have some kind of take a few of the bricks out so we can look in at the coffin. And people were buried in lead coffins, sealed lead coffins, because they were worried about diseases getting out. Probably very wise, you know, what we're dealing with these days. But there's a bit of video here for you inside that crypt. Have a look at it for yourself. It's quite spooky. So that is down in the crypt, and apparently they have done tours down there in the past. So soon as all this is out of the way, COVID, and we can get back to performing and we can get rid of the social distancing aspect of it, then I'm going to approach the crypt there and see if I can do something, because they hire it out. It's been used in films and TV shows, and they hire the church out as well. They do gigs in there. But I know a few of you out there are goths, or you're into you like your goth music. I mean, I used to be a goth in the Temple of Love, 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 love. You know, I'm a bit of a goth and a bit of a rocker. I used to love the Mission, still do. You know, Sisters of Mercy, all that sort of stuff. You've got to be a goth if you're into rock and horror things, haven't you? Really? But they have a nightclub there. It's called Aura, A-R-A, and Grave what? It's
Grave
called
dancing.
Not grave dancing. I haven't got it. But anyway, they do an aura night there where they have well, let's have a look at it anyway. That'll explain it more than I can say in words. It's full of your goths, and I know a few people that are watching tonight, they go there. And Haunt Manchester, that I'm part of, under Visit Manchester, they have some of their events there. They've had some interviews there. I've never been. I'm sure quite a few of you have been, but I would go, especially now I know a bit more about its history. So that is Aura. I'll tell you something, there's some of them goths have strange ways, don't they? They have strange ways. Lots of people in Salford have strange ways. I never knew there was an area called Strange Ways. I just thought of you know what when you say Strange Ways. But there's an area called Strange Ways. There was actually a family from Strange Ways called Strange Ways as well. The Strange Ways is from Strange Ways who ended up in Strange Ways, possibly. But so this area Strange Ways is, I think it's a great address to put on your letters, isn't it? Flecky Bennett, Strange Ways. Nothing. Got that quite right.
Says it all.
Says it all, doesn't it? Yes, so Strange Ways is an area. Now, first of all, it's famous for one thing, you'll know why. But it was famous for the Strange Ways Brewery as well. There was a brewery there from 1778, the Strange Ways Brewery, and then from the 1800s, it started making Boddington's Bitter, or as they used to call it in Preston and probably in Manchester, Bodies. I'll have a pint of Bodies. And I think it's still going, but you can't get it in many pubs these days. But Boddington's was really, really famous for its beer. Exported it all over the world. And they made it in that brewery till 2005. And then they demolished the brewery in 2007. So that's a great shame. I believe it's made now near Wharton, near Preston, my hometown. But do you remember? I mean, we all remember Melanie Sykes, don't we? Put me over here. I know Buglugs is here, but you know. We were all introduced to Melanie Sykes on them adverts, weren't we? You know what I'm saying? I know Paul Oscar, if he's watching. Melanie Sykes. She became the face of Boddington's bitter. However, they used to make some great adverts, and I remember, I don't think I was a child, but I was a teenager when all the adverts used to be on television, and I loved this advert. This was my favourite. Have a watch, see if you remember it.
That Gladys Oldthorpe, she never buys her own. Boddington's, the cream of Manchester.
I love that advert. It's brilliant, isn't it? They were all good adverts, but that was my favourite one. And Bayek. Do you remember that she went on to think she starred in Four Weddings and a Funeral, didn't she? Wasn't she known as Duckface?
I think so.
Yes, and then Melanie Sykes took over, I think, after that. But yeah, great advert. I'd love to do the gondolas on the Manchester Canal or the River Irwell. It'd be brilliant, wouldn't it? All you need to fork out for was a gondola and a hat or one of them sticks. I'm not a tyrant. Do you know how much them gondolas cost? £60,000 each. Yeah, I know. So, never know, one day might have a ghost gondola sailing along, singing, "Sing once again with me our strange duet." Phantom of the Flecky. Oh yes, we're not playing games. Sailing along with Buggerlugs. Come on, you're doing the rest of words. Anyway, so yeah, we all know Manchester. Strangeways area for one thing, don't we? Cheers, everybody. Before we go into the last story, because of its prison. Oh yes. Strangeways Prison, built in 1868, and iconic really. And even if you've not stood outside it, which I haven't, and thank God I haven't, because you've probably been a naughty boy if you have, you might have seen this on the horizon. You can see it mostly from all over Manchester. Oh, hang on, have you looked at Strangeways already?
No.
Alright, well that's what you can see on the horizon. Leave that on, Buggerlugs. All over the skyline of Manchester. I didn't know what it was till a couple of years ago, to be perfectly honest. I thought, like many people, it's a watchtower. I think I've seen many films like The Green Mile and all them sort of films where they have somebody with a rifle on top of one of them, don't they, in penitentiaries watching out, and I thought it was that, but it's actually a ventilation tower. So it's quite advanced, and here's the front of the prison. It was actually modelled on a Bavarian castle, of all things. So there's a bit of connection to Bram Stoker there. Built by Slaughterhouse Waterhouse, or Waterhouse Slaughterhouse, who built the town hall and specialised in them blood red bricks which look like blood. So yes, that's Strangeways. So you think because it had a ventilation tower it'd be quite, state of the art place to be, but it's been terrible. It's got terrible reputation, and only in 2017, when it was inspected by the governing body of prisons, they said this. Let me just say, it said it was rat infested and Dickensian. And one of the previous prison wardens actually called it, and I quote, a gloomy Gothic menace. I think I'm going to call Flecky that from now on. Hello, I'm Flecky Bennett, your gloomy Gothic menace. She's the menace, not me. I'm the well-behaved one round here. That's what they found out in 2017. It was a rat infested and it was Dickensian. Awful place to be. Now they built it for people not to escape, and nobody has escaped, I think, through the cell walls because they're 16 bricks thick. Okay? Now there was a riot, you maybe remember it, years ago. There was a famous riot there and they trashed a lot of it and it was rebuilt. So it's a little bit more modern now, but it's still, as I say, 2017 they said it was still a horrific place to be. Don't suppose it's supposed to be pleasant because it is a prison. And it used to be a male and female prison back in the day, but now it's just men. And I'm amazed at some of the people that have been locked up there, banged up inside Strangeways. I'm not surprised about Ian Brady, and he was a local lad. Not a claim to fame that I want to say. Ian Brady from the Moon Murderers was locked up in there. Harold Shipman, who I've mentioned in other performances, was banged up in there for a while. But I bet you didn't know this. Ian Brown from Happy Mondays. No, say that again. I'll just speak to me. Fanakapam. Stone Roses. Thank you. Ian Brown from the Stone Roses. I Want to Be Adored. He was inside there, banged up for a while. But my favourite, without a doubt, and I don't know if you know this, let me over here. I want to keep this secret between me and this one over here. Listen. Guess who was locked up in there? Only the leader of the Orange People from Stockport. David Dickinson. Bargain hunt. Dickinson's real deal. I bet it was real deal when he was in showers. Dickinson. David Dickinson was in Strangeways, and he was in there for counterfeit goods. Apparently, I think I read about this years ago, that he was selling knockoff clothing from the back of a van. So he's been an entrepreneur, but it was all knocked off. Bit of a Del Boy. So makes sense now, doesn't it? But yeah, and it's famous, it's world famous, because it did the quickest execution ever recorded of just over 6 seconds. I think it was 6.6 seconds, I think, to be precise. And that was by Pierpoint. Now, if you've been watching all my Friday Fright nights, you know that quite a lot of them, even Ashton and Oldham and Rochdale, I refer to, because most of the executions that worked at Strangeways were from them areas, so they're all mentioned in my other performances. And I'm fascinated by the fact that Strangeways was one of the only prisons in the country to have a permanent gallows and an execution shed. Gory subject. And they executed 100 people over the years. Some of them were double hangings. So you got to be hung next to your loved one if you were a couple. It's a horrible thing, but that's the way it was. And yeah, Pierpoint was famous, and you know, it's been haunted for many years. Now, I did a performance, Rochdale performance, and you may remember that I talked about a guy, an executioner called John Ellis. So I never thought about this before, I never thought that Strangeways is going to be haunted, really. I never really, because you don't see anything about it, because obviously there's no paranormal programs from inside Strangeways. There's no paranormal companies can go in there. There's no Most Haunted episodes. It doesn't look like there is going to be for some time, because only when it shuts down people will be able to investigate it, because it's still thriving and they're still getting more and more people there every year, you know. So it's haunted, and it's haunted by one of the previous executed people from there, and one executioner, and that is John Ellis, who was from Rochdale. Now, it's reported that there's an execution shed. It's been knocked down now. You know, when they revamped it after the riots, they took away the execution shed. But these are all based on a prison warder that was there for many years. And he talks about how often they would see on this balcony of B Wing a man in a dark black suit, which is apparently John Ellis's trademark, carrying with a little briefcase, walking along that passageway and into the condemned cell. And as they walk into the cell, they'd see him for a few seconds in the corner of the condemned cell. Sorry, not the condemned cell, I'm talking nonsense, inside the execution shed. That's what you're looking at now. He's in the execution shed, they see him for a few seconds, and then he just vanishes. And they used to see him over and over again. So it's haunted by the executioner John Ellis. Now you think to yourself, well, why is he haunting that place? Well, do watch the Rochdale one, and give generously if you do. But if you watch the Rochdale one again, he had a terrible time to John. Well, not as terrible as the woman he executed, but he had to execute a woman, and he was convinced this woman was innocent of the crime. And when he executed her, which he didn't want to do, they didn't know she was pregnant. And as he pulled it and she snapped her neck, she had a miscarriage. So there was blood everywhere, and you can imagine how that would mess with her mind. And then for the full story, watch the Rochdale one, but he ended up slitting his own throat and killing himself because of the stress of the job. And that's why they believe he still haunts, well, he used to haunt, the execution shed. But that's been ripped down now, and he hasn't appeared since. So again, if you believe in stone tape theory, where the walls suck in the video image and play it back again, but if the walls aren't there, maybe it can't be done anymore. But the ghost which terrorises to this very day is one of the woman called, and let me just get to it now. She is called Merrifield. She was a 47-year-old woman called Merrifield. Louisa Merrifield. Okay. I'm just going to say Merrifield because she was married, but I'm not going to refer to her husband as Merrifield. Let's just say Merrifield, I'm referring to her, okay? Because it gets complicated otherwise. Merrifield was a 46-year-old woman and her husband, and they must have fancied getting out of Manchester and living in Blackpool. So they befriended an old lady, a 79-year-old lady called, great name, Sarah Ricketts. Do you remember rickets used to be quite a popular disease back in the day? It's where your legs go bow like that. You see, you couldn't stop a pig in an alley if you had rickets.
Walking 10 to 2.
Walking 10 to 2. Anyway, this woman, Sarah Ricketts, was bedridden, 79-year-old. She had a bungalow, her own bungalow, and that was quite a thing, you know, back in the day. So Merrifield and her husband, they befriended her under the pretence that they were caring for her. So they looked after her, and over time they got her to change her will to put them as, you know, rightful owners of the bungalow when she passes away. And then they thought, oh, she's not ill enough, this woman. We must try to speed the journey. Now, apparently, Sarah Ricketts had a very strange diet. This is all she used to eat. Sounds a bit like Buggerlugs. She eats potato faces and then crispy pancake nonsense. But this woman, all she'd eat at night was a jar of jam, a full jar of jam, the sweetest jam she could get. She'd eat the entire jar as she was led in bed, washed down with a bottle of stout. That was her only food that she'd eat during the day. Bit odd, but you know, that's the way it is. So what did Merrifield decide to do? It was known as the housewife's choice back in that day, arsenic. She started buying arsenic, pretending it was for killing rats. That's what she told the chemist. And she got this arsenic and she put it bit by bit in the jam and stir it in, then present it to Sarah Ricketts. Well, I don't know if she had rickets, but that was her name. Stir it into the jam, and then she'd be there, probably no teeth at that age, in that time. Yum, 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 thank you very much, Merrifield. And she ate it every night, and then she was getting more and more sick. They did it very slowly because you don't want to, you know, get people suspicious that you're poisoning somebody. So you do it bit by bit, week by week. Anyway, eventually it did its final job and she passed away in the night, this old lady. They thought, yes, the bungalow is ours. We're living in Blackpool. And but her neighbours thought it was a bit suspicious. They never trusted Merrifield and her husband, and they reported it to the police. And they insisted, because not many autopsies were done back in the day, they said, can we have an autopsy done on Sarah Ricketts? So they said, okay. And when they looked into her stomach, they found traces of arsenic. Obviously, Merrifield denied it, but then they went to the chemist where she'd been buying it from, and they kept a record of her and the day she bought it. So she had no defence whatsoever, taken to court in Manchester, and her husband was arrested at the same time, but they couldn't find enough evidence for her husband, so he was acquitted. And Merrifield was given the death sentence, and she said, you will hang by the neck until you are dead, dead, dead. And she was appointed Pierpoint, the most famous executioner of the lot, and he did a quick job on her, straight in there, rope right neck, black bag on the head, straight through the trap door, dead and gone. And that was the end of Merrifield. And what they used to do is bury the execution bodies. See, before, way back in time, they used to give them bodies to the medical schools to do their experiments on. But then they changed that law, so they would bury them, but in unconsecrated ground within strange ways inside the walls. So she was buried in there. Now in the 1980s, they decided to knock down the women's part of the prison where it used to be, to build some new offices, and they had to dig up an area which was the ground where the executed used to be put, buried. And one of them bodies they dug out was Merrifield. And then shit started to get real from that moment on. And this prison warder told us his own personal account. He said, I was there one night, I'd heard about the spirit that used to walk along B1 corridor. And he said he saw her one night, this figure in black, very small, about 5 foot in height, but there was no way you could mistake it for a real woman Firstly, there was no women prisoners there, so it wasn't a prisoner walking about, but you could see through her. He said you could see the wall through her, and she was walking along. He said I just couldn't resist it, so he went up the stairs slowly and started walking behind her. And he followed her for 5 seconds. He saw her with his own eyes for 5 seconds, looking through her, but you could see the shape of her and everything. And she turned into she went through a cell door which was locked with an inmate inside. He couldn't believe what he just witnessed, so he got his keys out quickly, tried to find them for the cell door, hands shaking like a leaf, like you would be, got his keys into the lock, turned it, opened the door, and the guy inside went, "Oh my God," he said, "a woman's just come in just before you. She looked at me and pointed, then she disappeared." So the inmate had seen her from the other side of the door. She walked through it. The prison warden was shook up, and he went into the canteen and he said, "I've just seen this." And he said, "Oh aye, that's old Mrs. Merrifield's ghost. She often appears. She often appears at night in people's cells. People wake up in their cells to see her standing there, pointing at you. Mrs. Merrifield pointing, looking at you, pointing at you as you're in your cell. And it must be terrifying because there's no way you can run. You've got to wait while she vanishes in front of your eyes. Pointing to say, you're lucky. You're in here for a short time. I will never leave here." Talking about leaving here, I'm about to leave here very shortly, aren't we, Buggerlugs?
Yep.
But I know some of you lot out there have got strange ways. And one of my favourite actors is a guy called Graham Fellows, trained at my stage school. And he plays a character called John Shuttleworth. And he wrote a fantastic song about Manchester. And let's play a little excerpt. It always makes me laugh.
You're like Manchester, you've got strange ways. But you've got style too, and I miss you while I'm away. You're as pretty as that city in autumn too. And you're like Manchester, 'cause I love you. You're like Manchester, you've got strange ways. You are my queen, and like a certain town will always reign. You're as pretty as that city in autumn too. And you're like Manchester, 'cause I love you.
Just like Manchester, she's got strange ways. I sing that to Buggerlugs quite often, don't I?
Yeah.
And she has. So, my friends, I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have enjoyed it, if you've watched live, please give generously. As I say, theatre can't go back yet. Well, some theatres can. It's socially distanced and not moving about. But I'll be back as soon as possible. Maybe some good news today that some of the areas of Manchester are being lifted from this local lockdown. So there's some good news. Hopefully I can be back up and running as soon as possible. But if you could donate to the tip jar, if you've enjoyed it, this is our work as it stands at the moment. It's been great fun seeing you all again. Let's have a little Q&A. Have a think about if there's anything you want to ask. I know, you've asked questions in the past, so you can't keep asking the same thing, My tea's nearly ready anyway. But yes, just a couple of things. You might be thinking, oh, he didn't mention this, didn't mention that about Salford. Well, I've got some performances coming up, haven't I? I've got Ordsall Hall, an actual performance inside Ordsall Hall, so I don't want to spoil that for anybody. So that's going to be coming up. The first one had to be postponed, but I've been in touch with Ordsall Hall. As soon as we can stop this social distancing malarkey, we can start running them again. So hopefully, end of this year, maybe for Christmas time. I'd like to get back in there by November because it's got a real connection to Guy Fawkes, so November the 5th will be fantastic. If you have bought a ticket for that, don't forget, I'll be contacting everybody that's bought anything for anything to offer you extra dates and whatever you want, So it's been great, hasn't it? So that's why I'm not mentioning him. Not mentioning Lara because it's part of my Manchester River Cruise and some great stories on that, and that'll be back as soon as possible too. Anybody got any questions for us, Buggerlugs? Good pipe edge. It don't matter if you haven't.
I think there was some.
Well, there's not been many haunted pubs on this one, has there, tonight?
No.
And that's okay, because the next performance, the next Friday Fright Night, which I'm not sure if it's going to be 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Might be 2 weeks time, hopefully, but it could be 3 weeks, because Buggerlugs might not be here, so she might not be able to sort it. But 2 weeks or 3 weeks, it's going to be the weird and wonderful and ghostly stories of the pubs of Manchester. So we're going to go on a virtual pub crawl together. So get your beers in, get your wines in, and we'll have a little... we're not going to have a drink in every pub, because there could be a lot of them, but we'll have a sip of drink in every pub, won't we? Oh yes. So that should be great fun. But there's no questions as such.
No.
So my friends, it's been great meeting you all again. Please give generously, whether you're watching it live or you're watching it on YouTube tomorrow or the day after. Only if you can afford it, of course, because I understand the situation. But I love you all. Can't wait to see you again. So let's have our song out. Are you ready? It's Flecky, it's Friday, it's Flecky Bennett Friday, it's Flecky, it's Friday, it's Flecky's Fright Night.
It's Flecky, it's Friday, it's Flecky Bennett Friday, it's Flecky, it's Friday, it's Flecky's Fright Night.